Hi YouTube, Darth here. This is Yes or No, a weapon review series where I give a clear and concise answer as to what weapons you should be using in Battlefield 4. Today I'm looking at the RPK Light Machine Gun for the support class. When the game first released, it was called the RPK-74 and I called this the worst LMG ever. Since then, there have been numerous changes. So how does this weapon hold up? Should you use the RPK? Yes or no? Yes. This is a weapon that has come back from the dead over the last several patches, particularly the spring patch where it saw major damage, reload speed, and minimum spread upgrades. So what makes the RPK worth using? Let's look at the weapon's positives. This weapon has a unique damage model where it does 30 maximum and 20 minimum per round. This is better than the lesser caliber light machine guns, but not quite as good as the heavier light machine guns like the M240 Bravo. This damage model makes it one of the fastest killing light machine guns. The RPK is tied for best in game low minimum spread when standing still and aiming down sights among a select few automatic weapons. When combined with a low first shot recoil multiplier, this weapon's first few shots are some of the most accurate in the game. Its recoil pattern is nothing special, but the RPK can deliver a lethal stream with laser-like accuracy. One of the major changes that DICE made in the spring patch was to delineate a statistical difference between belt-fed and magazine-fed LMGs. The RPK was one of the benefactors of this change, meaning it has better than average reload speeds and minimum spread for the LMG class. This is a bit of a downside too, as ammo is somewhat limited for an LMG that's magazine-fed. That's pretty much it for the standout positives. As far as LMGs go, the RPK has real powers and the ability to deliver highly accurate, highly damaging initial volleys at medium to long range. And that's important because it has pretty nearly no ability to compete at close range. So let's look at the negatives. The RPK is as far away from a CQB shredder as you can get. In fact, at 600 rounds per minute, only the U100 and M60 are slower in the LMG category. Now, the up-close maximum damage of the RPK helps to offset this somewhat, but you're generally not going to be winning battles against weapons that excel in ranges closer than 15 to 20 meters. Surprisingly, that's really the weapon's only detraction. Now, when I first looked at the RPK several months ago after the game launched, it had many more detractions. Firstly, the reload time was a full half-second longer, the minimum spread was much higher, and the damage model was non-competitive with other faster LMGs. Combine that with the increased headshot multiplier of the spring patch and you can see why this gun has gotten so much better. Like a branding makeover, the RPK-74 changed names to the RPK to signify its underlying changes, and the fact that it changed from a 5.54mm weapon to a 7.62. Because of the slow RPM of this weapon, it's going to be pretty easy to compensate while it's being fired. The RPK has a recoil pattern of 0.36 up, 0.3 to the left, and 0.2 to the right. This generally means that during sustained fire, the weapon is going to pull up and to the left. Now, this is easy enough to compensate against, at least on the PC, as you'll need to pull down and to the right during sustained fire. Because this weapon has a high damage model of 30 damage maximum per bullet, you're only going to need 4 to 5 rounds per target to put them down, assuming every shot lands on target. Less if you're in hardcore or get some headshots in. Generally, I strive to fire the RPK in 5-round bursts. Make no mistake, the RPK is specifically designed to be good at medium and longer ranges. The low rate of fire and low first shot recoil multiplier and minimum spread mean those first few shots are highly accurate. However, because of the weapon's slow rate of fire, that means that at close range the advantages completely melt away. I found that the best combination of tactics for using the RPK was to first, find maps that it was suitable for, second, put myself in a favorable engagement area, and third, make sure I had close range backups for when I needed to clear house and CQB. To that first point, the RPK excels on maps with medium to long lines of sight. Zavod, Propaganda, and Rogue Transmission are all good examples of maps with a good mix of medium and longer range combat. Attempting to bring the RPK to a close quarters map like Pearl Market is just going to end in tears. Although, you can make it work on mixed maps like Operation Locker, but only if you stick to those long routes. And that feeds into the second point about putting yourself into favorable engagement areas. For example, the RPK would be better at pushing the outer flags on Zavod than the inner two. Charlie and Echo on Propaganda might be dangerous, while Alpha, Bravo, and Delta might be reasonable areas of operation for the RPK. Obviously, it can be made to work in tight spaces, but that's not where its strengths are. And finally, keep a backup plan when using the RPK. My insurance policies are a fast-killing secondary and C4. C4 is probably going to be your best friend with the RPK, as you can use it to clear corners in tight spaces, which the RPK is exceptionally bad at. Hurl a pack around the corner and enjoy the boom. As for secondary, I'd recommend running either the 93R, G18, or Shorty, as these are great at putting down single enemies almost instantly. So there were some changes to the attachment system in the spring patch, and a fair number of Battlefield players seem to be still confused about the changes. Without getting too deeply into the details, I'll just say that you should calm down and simply use the attachments that you'd normally have used before the patch. Just know that there are certain combos that aren't as cut and dry as they used to be. For the RPK, I did my usual due diligence by taking a look at what the top users in the world were using. For the most part, I used the same setup, but I have a few caveats worth mentioning. First up, the top players mostly went with an RDS, and while this sight can work for you, I found that either the 1X Hollow or IRNV were my preferred sights. Because the 1X Hollow seems to push me out to just about the intended range for this weapon, I found it to be very effective. When I felt comfortable about losing my field of vision, I'd go with the IRNV, and this ended up being pretty good as well, particularly for spotting enemies in visually dense maps like Wheeling Peaks. Next, for the accessory, surprise surprise, I went with the laser sight. This is pretty much my default accessory, as it can be turned off when I don't need it, which is most of the time. If I found myself in close quarters, I'd typically turn it back on. But I ultimately don't expect to win a lot of straight-up close-quarters battles with the RPK, especially not with hipfire, unless the enemy completely misses their shots. For the barrel attachment, I feel like I could go in a few directions here depending on the situation. In most situations, I prefer to run the heavy barrel, as it gives me a tighter spread by decreasing the minimum spread by half, slowing the spread increase, and giving me slightly better aim spread while on the move. The cost is increased upwards recoil, but this weapon is already highly accurate, so an increase of 0.108 is not much to absorb on PC. Alternatively, I'll run the silencer in this position, but only if I feel like the enemy is constantly creeping on me from the minimap. It's one of those things that's nice for deflecting some attention, but costs you quite a bit of performance at range, so it's a major trade-off. Finally, I think the grip is one of those things that is also fairly malleable on this weapon. While I would prefer to run with a stubby grip to add even more accuracy and turn this weapon into a laser, the ergo grip is also a possibility. Generally, I'll prefer to run this weapon with the stubby and heavy in combination, as they give a nice performance boost to the first few shots. Again, if I feel like I'm being pressured pretty often, I might switch to the ergo silencer to give myself some more mobility and stealthiness. But ergo silencer is definitely the less optimal of the two setups. Overall, the RPK has undergone a pretty significant change over the course of the game. It started out as a pretty atrocious weapon with no outstanding features to draw players to it. Over the life of the game, it's slowly gotten better, and the spring patch really helped to carve a niche for this weapon. So it's a definite yes. If you find yourself liking the RPK, you can pick up its slightly more accurate cousin, the RPK-12. The RPK-12 has both better overall accuracy and a faster reload time. If you're feeling really frisky, you can try out the U100, which is easily the most accurate LMG in the game, but also one of the riskiest. That's it for this episode of Yes or No. If there's something you think I missed, or if you have a different take on the RPK, please let me know. If there's a particular weapon you'd like to see reviewed on this series, leave a comment below indicating which weapon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.